75-member choir performed all-American classics like Shenandoah and dedicated the concert in memory of Gregg Smith.
Gregg was a composer, conductor who fell in love with the Adirondacks, came up here with his wife, Rosalind Rees, and they started this Adirondack Festival of American Arts, choral music, and he brought up his professional group ensemble called the Gregg Smith Singers. And for 30 years, he offered a whole festival, and for 2 weeks, all of the churches were bustling with beautiful music.
Smith, who was a pioneer in the world of choral music and founder of the renowned Gregg Smith Singers, died last summer. Nearly a dozen of the choir members through the years sang at Smith's Adirondack Festival of American Music and his patriotic 4th of July concerts, as Saranac Lake would come alive every summer with music. And it is a pleasure to welcome Rosalind Rees Smith and also Malcolm Merriweather, who is the music director of the Dessoff Choirs in New York City and director of choirs at Brooklyn College Conservatory of Music. Welcome. It's nice to have both of you here.
Thank you.
Roz, many of our viewers have come to know you, both as a singer, but also for the Summer Music Festival that you and your late husband, Gregg, organized for more than 30 years. The village of Saranac Lake would come alive every summer with music. Such fond memories for a lot of people living there. How did this festival come about? How did you and Gregg bring this festival to the Adirondacks and to Saranac Lake?
It was a miracle in a certain way. I was out in the Midwest on the Mississippi doing a workshop with the Gregg Smith Singers, and I got a frantic call from a wonderful singer who was sick. She had a piece of George Crumb to do in Lake Placid at the community church in about a week. Did I know the piece? No, I didn't. Could I learn it? Because the instrumentalists all had done it many times, and Crumb was coming, and so of course I said yes. And Gregg came along to be just super supportive, and because Gregg was here, they said, oh, you have that wonderful Gregg Smith Singers. Wouldn't it be great if you'd come next summer? And Gregg said, I'd love to. So he did the next summer, and we were at Paul Smith's College with about 16 singers, and we just fell in love and were made to feel so wanted.
And then for the next 34 years, you would come up every summer. You would bring the Gregg Smith Singers, would come up and spend their vacation here, and you would welcome in acclaimed musicians and composers, and the summers would come alive with music.
Many, many famous musicians came. And Chorus America, which is the national organization of choruses, began to produce a conducting workshop. And we used the Lake Placid Sinfonetta for a while. Carl Eberl was the conductor then. And later, when they kind of scratched their head and said, oh, there's so much hard American music going on, don't we ever play Mozart, you know? Gregg started to bring some instrumentalists from the city, and we ended up with our own chamber orchestra, but we're always friends with the Sinfonetta. They're a wonderful, wonderful group.
And for the people of Saranac Lake and Lake Placid and the area, what a wonderful experience to have such talented musicians coming, to be able to hear such wonderful music and then participate. You have generations of musicians that grew up attending these workshops and concerts.
Yeah. We started a children's choir early on. So we have in the Northern Lights, we have people who were in that children's choir and people who were in the festival chorus. We were gypsies before. In the summertime, the Gregg Smith Singers would do a week in Cleveland and a week along the Mississippi River, and suddenly when we were here, Gregg was able to really format his own program, and then, God bless, we bought the camp and got an upright piano And he composed, well, Malcolm, you know how many compositions he composed out here. We always stayed at least another month or 5 weeks, and he never
loved it.
stopped composing. It's inspiration.
The concert that was held back in May, that was a nice tribute to Gregg that night. And you participated. You sang a song.
I did. Someone said to Helen, "What should Roz sing?" And Helen said, "Well, I don't know. What do you think she should sing?" And they, "Beautiful Dreamer." Every 4th of July we had Beautiful Dreamer. I mean, Stephen Foster is the American Schubert after all. And if you just sing it the way he wrote it, it's wonderful.
And Malcolm, if folks aren't familiar with the music festival or with Gregg's many accomplishments as a world-renowned choral conductor and composer, share with us some of the things that really made Gregg a choral master.
Well, Gregg had the finest ear that I had ever encountered, and he was well known for creating an outstanding blend with his Gregg Smith Singers. One aspect of Gregg's career and a trademark of the Gregg Smith Singers is multidimensionalism that has really fascinated me and something that I have sort of borrowed in my own concert career, and that is the aspect of performing music in a spatial fashion around the concert venue, surrounding the audience, using a balcony, using the front of the church, and in a really creative way. And he did this on tours, he did this in the New York series, in Europe, all over the world. And it really shows the humanity of Gregg Smith because it brings the music to the people.
I always felt as we stepped off the stage and came into the aisles, and you understand some nights we'd be, this is tour now, we'd be in a gorgeous music hall. And the next night we were in a gym. Or maybe we were in a church. But there was that moment as we stepped off the stage, we broke that barrier that is sometimes between performer and audience. And suddenly they saw, you know, the real thing. And then we stood beside them spatially and sang, and they heard individual voices making this sound of Gregg's.
You got up close and personal.
Yeah, exactly.
And Gregg loved that. He loved taking risk like that and doing things that other choral directors, traditional choirs had
You
never
have to
done.
remember, Gregg was a composer first. He was in the 20th century. His best friends were other composers, and who of course were sending him music daily. And so this was his mission in a certain way. He loved all music, but it was that composer in him that made the choices. Don't you think, Malcolm?
Absolutely.
And he was a truly prolific composer.
Yes, over
hundreds of works.
400 works.
Malcolm can tell you.
So part of my project, my dissertation, was creating a complete works list. But in that process of alphabetizing and sorting and preserving these beautiful compositions, we found a number over 400. And in the brilliance of Gregg Smith, we found a couple of other pieces subsequently that were, not in the place that we thought they were. So the number has grown.
And you're hopeful that the biography that you've put together you might be able to publish and share with others.
Absolutely. I think that because Gregg was a pioneer for American music and the music of Gabrieli, the music of Schütz, and Monteverdi, and as I said earlier, a influence of so many conductors and composers. This is a great American story, and I want to share it with other musicians and anyone who is interested. So yes, I will be revising, and it'll hit the shelves sometime in the near future, hopefully.
Well, Rosalind Rees and Malcolm Merriweather, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.